Ever wonder if those stomach cramps after eating bread mean you have the serious one? You know, the one where even a tiny crumb can damage your body for months? Or maybe it's just your body being dramatic about gluten. Here is the thing that will change how you think about this. There is actually a simple test that determines your entire approach to gluten. And the title promise. It's real. We're talking about a basic blood test, nothing complicated or expensive, that literally decides whether you need to live like gluten is poison or if you can find your personal balance. But first, let me be clear. This content is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult with a healthcare professional before making dietary changes or for proper diagnosis and treatment. The stakes here are higher than you think. Know the difference, and you will finally understand how strict you actually need to be with your diet. Here's the mistake that traps thousands of people every year. They feel sick after eating gluten, so they immediately go gluten-free. Sounds logical, right? Wrong. This single decision locks them out of ever getting a clear answer. Once you've been gluten-free for weeks or months, the blood test that diagnoses celiac disease becomes completely unreliable. Your body stops producing the antibodies doctors look for. It is like trying to test if someone is allergic to cats after they haven't been around cats for 6 months. Picture this. You're stuck in permanent limbo. You don't know if you have celiac disease where one crumb can trigger months of internal damage, or if you just have an intolerance where symptoms are uncomfortable but not dangerous. So what do? Some people become unnecessarily strict. They stress about every meal, avoid restaurants, and live in constant fear of cross-contamination. Others assume they just have a mild sensitivity and aren't careful enough, potentially causing real harm if they actually have celiac. The frustration is real. You're left asking yourself, am I doing enough to protect myself? Am I being too cautious? Not cautious enough? This uncertainty affects everything. Your grocery shopping becomes guesswork. Eating out turns into an anxiety-inducing investigation. You're making major life decisions based on a guess. But here's what changes everything. There's a clear path to getting answers. The difference between celiac disease and gluten intolerance isn't just medical jargon. It's the difference between two completely different ways of living. So what's the actual difference between these conditions? And how do you find out which one you're dealing with? That's what we're covering next, starting with the one that requires your complete attention. Celiac disease is like a forest defense system turning against its own ecosystem. When someone with celiac eats gluten, their body doesn't just react badly to it. It literally mistakes gluten for an invasive species and launches a full-scale attack to protect the territory. But here's the challenging part. While trying to destroy the gluten, your immune system can end up affecting your own tissue. Specifically, it can damage the tiny finger-like projections called villi that line your small intestine. Think of villi like the root system of an ancient forest. Millions of microscopic nutrient-gathering structures that absorb everything your body needs from food. When these villi get damaged, they can't do their job properly, like a forest with damaged root systems struggling to absorb water and nutrients from the soil. Your body starts struggling to absorb vitamins, minerals, and other essential nutrients. This is why people with untreated celiac often experience fatigue, weight loss, anemia, and other signs of malnutrition, even when they're eating plenty of food. The autoimmune response doesn't happen once and stop. Every single time gluten enters the system, the reaction begins again. This means the effects can be cumulative. Each exposure may cause inflammation that lasts for weeks or even months. Now, what does this mean for daily life? Zero tolerance. We're talking about a level of strictness that might seem extreme to outsiders, but it's medically necessary. Cross-contamination becomes a real concern, like how even trace amounts of an invasive species can disrupt an entire ecosystem. That means separate toasters, separate cutting boards, even separate condiment jars. Why? Because even microscopic amounts of gluten can trigger the immune response. We're talking about amounts so small you can't see them, like pollen drifting on the wind. Restaurant dining requires careful questioning. Is the gluten-free pasta cooked in the same water as regular pasta? Are the French fries fried in oil that's also used for breaded items? These aren't picky preferences, they're safety questions. Label reading becomes an art form. Gluten hides in places you wouldn't expect: soy sauce, salad dressings, even some medications and vitamins. People with celiac learn to scan ingredient lists like detectives looking for clues. The social aspect can be challenging too. Declining food at gatherings isn't about being difficult. It's about preventing internal damage that the person can't even feel happening. Many people with celiac describe feeling like they read constantly explaining themselves or worrying about being seen as high maintenance. But here's what's important to understand. For someone with celiac disease, this isn't a lifestyle choice or a preference. It's a medical necessity. The strictness isn't about being dramatic or following a trend. It's about preventing serious long-term complications. What kind of complications? If celiac disease goes untreated, or if someone continues to consume gluten, the ongoing intestinal damage may lead to other health concerns. We're talking about potential increased risk of other autoimmune conditions, bone problems from poor nutrient absorption, and sometimes neurological issues. This is why the diagnosis matters so much. When someone knows they have celiac disease, they understand that every decision about food is actually a decision about their long-term health. That shared appetizer isn't worth potentially triggering months of internal inflammation. That just a small bite could trigger an immune response that may affect nutrient absorption for weeks. But here's the important part. With proper diagnosis and management, people with celiac disease live completely normal, healthy lives. The key is knowing what you're dealing with so you can protect yourself appropriately. The psychological aspect is significant too. Living with celiac means accepting that food safety is now a permanent part of your identity. It affects where you travel, how you socialize, and how you plan your daily routine. But there's also relief in knowing. Once diagnosed, people with celiac finally understand why they felt sick. They have a clear path forward. The rules are non-negotiable, but they're also clear. No guesswork, no wondering if they're being careful enough. This is the reality of the celiac path: strict, vigilant, but with a clear understanding of why every precaution matters. It's about protecting your body from attacking itself. But what if the test shows you don't have celiac? What if your body's reaction to gluten is different? That's where gluten intolerance comes in, and it's a completely different story. Now let's talk about the other path, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or what most people call gluten intolerance. This is where your body reacts to gluten, but in a completely different way. With gluten intolerance, your body isn't launching an ecosystem-wide defense response. It's not mistaking gluten for an invasive species and damaging your own tissue. Instead, it's more like a sensitive animal reacting to environmental changes. Your digestive system is saying, I really don't like this stuff, and I'm going to let you know about it. The key difference? No intestinal damage. No ecosystem-wide defense response. No root system getting destroyed. Your small intestine stays structurally intact, like a forest that's irritated by certain conditions but doesn't suffer permanent damage. The reaction is uncomfortable, sometimes very uncomfortable, but it's not causing the kind of internal harm that happens with celiac disease. So what does gluten intolerance actually feel like? The symptoms can be frustratingly similar to celiac disease. We're talking about bloating that makes you want to unbutton your pants. Digestive issues that can range from mild discomfort to urgent bathroom trips. Headaches that seem to come out of nowhere after eating. Fatigue that hits you like a wave a few hours after a meal. Some people also experience brain fog, joint aches, or even mood changes. The symptoms typically show up within hours or days of eating gluten, which is actually faster than celiac disease, where the immune response can take days or weeks to fully develop. But here's where it gets interesting: the flexibility factor. Unlike celiac disease, where even microscopic amounts can trigger months of internal damage, gluten intolerance operates on more of a spectrum. Some people can handle small amounts of gluten without major issues. Others need to avoid it almost completely to feel their best. This means your approach becomes about finding your personal tolerance level rather than following medical necessity. Maybe you can handle a few bites of regular bread, but feel terrible after eating a whole sandwich. Maybe you can enjoy pasta occasionally but need to avoid it during stressful periods when your digestive system is more sensitive. The lifestyle approach is completely different too. Cross-contamination might cause uncomfortable symptoms, but it's not disrupting your internal ecosystem in lasting ways. You might choose to be more relaxed about shared cooking surfaces or dining out, knowing that accidental exposure means temporary discomfort, like a brief environmental irritant, not months of inflammation. This flexibility can be both liberating and confusing. With celiac, the rules are clear: zero gluten, period. With intolerance, you're essentially conducting ongoing experiments with your own body to figure out what works for you. Some people with gluten intolerance find they can manage their symptoms by reducing gluten rather than eliminating it completely. Maybe they switch to sourdough bread, which has lower gluten content due to the fermentation process. Maybe they avoid gluten during the week, but are more flexible on weekends. Others discover that their tolerance changes based on stress levels, sleep quality, or other health factors. During busy periods, they might need to be stricter. When they're well rested and healthy, they might handle gluten better. The psychological relief is significant too. Yes, you're dealing with uncomfortable symptoms, but you're not worried about causing permanent damage every time you accidentally consume gluten. That shared dessert might make you feel bloated tomorrow, but it's not triggering an autoimmune response that damages your intestines for months. Restaurant dining becomes a comfort versus convenience decision rather than a safety issue. You might ask about gluten-free options because you want to feel good after the meal, not because you're worried about serious health consequences. Travel becomes easier too. You can pack some backup snacks and do your best to make good choices, but you're not carrying detailed translation cards or researching celiac-safe restaurants in every city you visit. The social aspect is different as well. You might choose to be flexible at special occasions, knowing you will deal with some discomfort but won't cause lasting harm. Or you might decide that feeling good is worth being stricter about your choices. But here's what is crucial to understand. This flexibility only applies if you actually have gluten intolerance and not celiac disease. Making assumptions about which condition you have can be dangerous if you're wrong. This is why the distinction matters so much for your daily life decisions. Are you managing temporary discomfort, or are you preventing serious internal damage? The answer changes everything about how you approach food, social situations, and long-term health planning. So how do you find out which path you're on? The process is actually straightforward, but timing is everything. It starts with a simple blood test that looks for specific antibodies your body produces in response to gluten. If you have celiac disease, your immune system creates these antibodies as part of that autoimmune attack we talked about. The blood test can detect them. If the blood test comes back positive, your doctor will likely recommend a biopsy of your small intestine. This confirms the diagnosis by showing actual damage to those villi. It sounds invasive, but it's typically done during a routine endoscopy. Here's the crucial part. You must be eating gluten for these tests to work accurately. If you've already gone gluten-free, the antibodies disappear, and the intestinal damage can start healing. The tests become unreliable. If both tests come back negative, celiac disease is ruled out. Your symptoms are likely from non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which is diagnosed through elimination and monitoring how you feel when you avoid gluten. The results give you life-changing clarity. Positive means the strict celiac path. Negative means the management path for gluten intolerance. Before making any dietary changes, talk to your doctor about getting tested. Proper testing gives you the clarity and confidence to know exactly how to protect your health while still enjoying life. Here's what I want to know. Have you made the testing mistake? Did you go gluten-free before getting tested and end up stuck in that frustrating limbo? Drop a comment below. Your story might save someone else from making the same mistake. Or maybe you got tested and finally found your answer. How did it change your approach to food? Are you on the strict celiac path or managing gluten intolerance? Share your experience. If this helped you understand the difference, hit that subscribe button. We're here to help you connect the dots between your body's signals and the natural world around us. Whether you're navigating the celiac ecosystem or finding your personal gluten balance,